In this video, I'm going to give you a checklist of 10 different items about Advantage plans that you need to know so that you can decide whether an Advantage plan is going to be best for you or not. And then at the end, I'm going to share with you 3 of those items that would personally keep me from choosing an Advantage plan. So let's get into our checklist. Let's look at item number 1. First off, if we're going to take an Advantage plan, we have to be enrolled in A and B. Okay, so the Advantage company will usually not charge us a premium, but in order to qualify for an Advantage plan, we are going to have to be enrolled in A and B, which means what? We're going to have to pay our B premium. Now, the B premiums do change on an annual basis, but right now the B premium is $170.10 a month. Okay, and so we are going to have to pay for our Part B premium. That's on a monthly basis. So if we're on Social Security, that Part B premium comes out of our Social Security check. If not, they'll bill us quarterly, or we can set up some kind of an electronic payment with Medicare until we start our Social Security benefits. So we have to be enrolled in Medicare A and B. We also have to live in what's called a plan service area. And so let's say you live in Denver, Colorado. That's a service area, the whole metro area, and the Advantage plans are going to cover that metro area. If you live in a more of a rural area, it would be more of a regional plan. It could include maybe 5 or 6 counties or maybe the whole state. But the whole point is to enroll into an Advantage plan, you've got to be enrolled in A and B. We got to pay our B premium to be eligible, and we have to live in the plan service area. Okay, so that is check box number 1. We got to make sure that we have done that. Now let's talk about the second feature of Advantage plans, and that is it is a pay-as-you-go system. And you have to be comfortable with this. None of us know exactly what our health care costs are going to be throughout the year, but if I enroll in an Advantage plan, as I need health care service, I will pay as I go. What do I mean by that? That means that there's going to be co-pays as part of my Advantage plan. Now, most of the plans right now, if you see your primary care doctor, it's a 0 copay, sometimes maybe upwards to $10 max. If you see a specialist, it's going to be about a $25 to $50 copay when you see that specialist, that cardiologist, dermatologist, orthopedic doctor. When you go to the hospital, it's normally about a $350 a day copay for a certain amount of days, normally 5 or 6 days. Then after that, there's no cost to go to the hospital. And then each hospitalization, you have to pay that daily copay. If you have an MRI or a CAT scan or a PET scan, that scan's probably going to cost you maybe $250 to $300 per test. If you have an outpatient procedure, an outpatient surgery, you'll have a very reasonable copay, again, normally about $250 to $300, and it covers everything for that outpatient surgery, the surgeon, the anesthesiologist, the facility fee, and the nursing services. But everything's included in that copay. So as you can see, as I get services, I'm going to have copays. That's my responsibility. Now, there will be something beyond copays, and that would be coinsurance. And this is very common when it comes to chemotherapy and other type services where Medicare sets the reimbursement rate, and the Advantage plan would pay 80% of that rate, and then you would pay 20% coinsurance, all right? And then occasionally some of the plans also has some deductibles, but that's not most common. But we do have copays and coinsurance until we hit what is called the MOOP, or the max out of pocket. And this just simply means that my copays are being applied to the max out of pocket. And if I ever reach that amount, then I'll be done with my copays, my coinsurance, and there will be no cost after I've reached my max out of pocket. Now that's going to vary plan to plan, certainly around the country, but on the average right now, that's going to be about $3,500 to about $5,000 a year if I'm in network. If I go out of network, that's going to be anywhere from about $7,000 to $10,000 max out of pocket. And so you're not going to spend $50,000 or $100,000. You're just simply going to pay these very reasonable copays until you hit your max, and then you'll be done for the year. You can put your wallet away if you do max out, and then next January these will start again, and then we're paying as we go until we hit the annual max out of pocket. Okay, so you have to be comfortable with that. And so if you're comfortable with that, then we understand that we can check that box off as well. Now, the third aspect of these plans is that they are a 1-year agreement, which is called a 1-year contract, and that's it. They're not lifetime policies, they're 1 year. And this is basically an agreement between Medicare, an insurance company that made that Advantage plan available to you, and then you're the insured. So you all have this 3-party agreement, and it's an agreement only for a year. Now, if you start the Advantage Plan in January, it's going to be a 12-month agreement. If you start your Medicare coverage in July, it's going to be for 6 months, but it's just an annual agreement, and you have to be comfortable with that. Also, when it comes to these contracts, they're tied to a plan's service area. So if you leave Denver, Colorado, and you move to San Francisco, California, you're changing service areas, and you'll have to pick up a new Medicare Advantage plan once you have moved. It's not hard to do. You just have to find new doctors, a new network, and make sure you're going to be comfortable with that new plan once you've relocated, because you do not take those with you. So it's a 1-year agreement. And again, if you're comfortable with that, then Advantage Plan may be a good fit for you. Hey, if you want to learn more about Medicare, I want to invite you to join our MedicareSchool.com Facebook group. Every Monday, Central Time, 5 o'clock, we'll take a very important topic and get into the details of that. So if it's something that you would enjoy doing, we hope that you'll join us. Now let's talk about feature number 4, and that would be when it comes to a Part D plan. Part D plans are for prescription drugs, all right? And so what happens is with the Advantage plan, they're almost always included. We also say, or they're embedded. In other words, it's part of the coverage. And we would call that a Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan all in one. So one card issued to you by the insurance company takes care of inpatient, outpatient, and prescription drugs. And by the way, that's what most people are going to have when they have an Advantage plan. But I do want to make a side note here. For any of you that are eligible for TRICARE for life, which means you're retired from the military, or you're a veteran, you have VA benefits, or if you're FEHB, which stands for Federal Employee Health Benefit Plan, meaning you're retired from the federal government, you actually have a kind of a unique option, and you can get what's called an MA-only plan. An MA-only plan means that you're going to get your prescription drugs through FEHB or through a VA or through the TRICARE for Life system, and you can just simply get in and outpatient, and there's some real exclusive benefits, some unique benefits, I should say, that would be available to you if you have an MA-only plan. But again, most people are going to have a prescription drug as part of the package. And what I want to caution you of here is you've got to make sure that you're comfortable with how your prescription are going to be covered, because you don't get to select your own drug plan. It's embedded or included, so you have to make sure that you have good and adequate coverage for your meds at very reasonable copays, because sometimes they embed a drug plan that's kind of mediocre. Sometimes they're very, very good. So you just got to make sure we have adequate drug coverage, because it is going to be part of the package. And again, if you're comfortable with that, then we can check that off as well. Now that takes us then to feature number 5. And this has to do with providers, hospitals, doctors, and different providers. You have provider networks, all right? And so when we go on an Advantage plan, we have to realize this is really the way that these plans are going to work. It's what makes them even possible. They put together a network of providers, and we're going to have HMOs and we're going to have PPOs. Now, when I usually describe these plans, I always use a box to describe the HMO, because it's going to be a smaller amount of doctors, less hospitals to choose from. Now, there still may be lots to choose from, but there's going to be less than if we go with the PPO. And the reason for that is very simple. All you have to do is follow the money. When a doctor or hospital agrees to see HMO patients, they do not get paid as much as if they were on the PPO contract. PPO pays more. Okay, and so what happens is when these Advantage plans are building their network, they make both available to the physicians, and they'll let them know that you'll probably get more patients on the HMO. We don't pay as much, but you have more quantity. PPO pays them more money. They just may not have as many patients. And again, doctors have to decide whether they want to take both networks or maybe just one, and sometimes none. But the whole point is you're always going to have some type of a network if you go with an Advantage plan. Now, another issue about this would be if you're on an HMO, sometimes they require you to get a referral to see a specialist. Some do, some don't. PPOs never require that. Also, with HMO plans, you cannot go out of your network. Out of network. You just cannot do that. HMOs say you must stay in your network unless it's an emergency or an urgent care situation. PPO, yes, you can go out of the network. They allow you to do that. Now, when you go out, as I said earlier, you'll probably pay a little bit more. Annual max out of pocket is normally somewhere between about $7,000 and $10,000, but at least you have the privilege to go out of the network. If the provider that you want to go to is not in that network, you can still do so. As long as they take Medicare, you can go out. But again, we're going to have to live with these issues of limitations and sometimes some restrictions and size of networks if we go on the Advantage plan. If you're comfortable with that, again, we can check that off as well. All right, that takes us then to number 6 feature, and this has to do with pre-authorizations. Now, let me just kind of explain and define what a pre-authorization is. A pre-authorization would be a healthcare service that you need, such as an MRI or a PET scan or a CAT scan, maybe a surgery, inpatient or outpatient, maybe a skilled nursing stay, but you need some kind of a healthcare service that your doctor is recommending. But if you're on an insurance plan that has pre-authorization, it means that the insurance company has to agree with the doctor's decision, actually has to approve it before you're going to be able to get that service. And so on Advantage plans, they say right now about 72% of the services that people need are going to have to be pre-authorized or pre-approved. So just because the doctor says you need a knee replacement or hip replacement or some other service doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. You may or may not. The insurance company really does have the final say-so. So they're going to have to approve that decision of the doctors. If they do, then you'll get it. If they don't, it may be delayed or you may not get it at all. But that's a pre-authorization. All right. And so again, if you're comfortable with that, the right that you're giving to the insurance company to make that final decision instead of your doctor, again, we can check that off as well.
Hey, if you're looking for someone to help you hold your hand through this entire Medicare enrollment process, we would love to do that. Our team is standing by to help you. We help about 1,000 people a month go from Medicare confusion to having their plans enrolled, and it takes probably less than an hour. Go to the pinned comment below and you can book your appointment.
All right, that takes us then to feature number 7 with Advantage plans, and that is the majority of them are going to have dental and vision hearing benefits that original Medicare would not cover. Now, what they typically do on the dental benefit is this. They're going to give you about $1,000 a year, and there are some plans that may give you a little bit more, but that just simply means you got a $1,000 bucket of money that can be used for maybe extractions or fillings or a partial crown or just different things that you may use for dental services up to about $1,000, okay, on an annual basis. One thing you do have to make sure of is that you need to find out, is it a network plan? Do you have to go to certain dentists to be able to get that benefit? We also have vision benefits. Now, vision benefits are going to vary, but they're normally going to give you one eye exam a year that original Medicare would not cover, and they're going to give you some type of a credit for eyewear, contacts and glasses, and that normally ranges about $250 a year. Okay, so that'll be part of that benefit as well. And then hearing aids. And what they're going to typically do is put together a network of hearing aid providers, certain hearing aids that they will cover, and then what you're going to have is a copay for the hearing aids. And folks, frankly, they're very good. We normally see anywhere from about $300 copay to maybe $700 copay per hearing aid per year. And so it's a nice benefit that would be added. So if this is something that looks like a wonderful feature for you, we'll check that off, and now you have dental, vision, hearing benefits on the Advantage plan. All right, that takes us then to number 8 feature, and that would be over-the-counter card. Now, let me explain this. This is something that just started a couple years ago, but over-the-counter card is a card that is loaded with a credit of money, usually about $50 a quarter or so, and you have a card, and then now you're able to go online, or you're able to go to the Advantage plan's catalog, and you can pick out certain over-the-counter items. These are things that Medicare wouldn't typically cover. It could be supplements, it could be aspirin or Band-Aids or a variety of things that you would typically get at a drugstore, and you can get those things shipped to your home, and it's just part of the package. And again, they reload that card about $50 every 3 months. So again, that's a nice feature. In addition to that, we also have gym memberships that are part of most Advantage plans. Now, we have 2 networks throughout the country. One is called Silver Sneakers, and then the other one is called Renew Active. And depending on what Advantage plan you're with, they'll make available to you this gym membership, so you can go to Curves or YMCAs or different community centers and different fitness centers, and if they take that plan, then you're able to have a free membership and work out at that facility at no cost to you. Okay, so that's a nice feature. Okay, so those are some nice perks that are included that we can check off our list for Advantage plans. And then also on this one, there's a feature called a Part B reduction. Now, we've seen lots of ads about this, and frankly, the ads have created a lot of confusion. But right now, let me kind of explain Part B reduction. So right now, people are paying $170.10 a month for their Part B benefits. Remember, we have to be enrolled in A and B to get an Advantage plan. So we're paying this Part B premium. It comes out of our Social Security check, or they bill us quarterly, or we set up some kind of a bank draft with the government until we start our Social Security, $170.10 a month. So with some plans, in some areas, what happens is the Advantage plan will take some of their money, and they can actually apply a credit towards your Part B. And what that simply means is they're going to say on a monthly basis, we'll give you a $50 credit or a $100 credit towards your Part B. And they're just taking some of their money and offsetting Part B. So if you have a $50 a month credit, instead of your Part B being $170.10, it may be $120.10 a month. So it's going to be reduced. All right. And so that's a Part B reduction. Again, not all plans have it, but some are going to have that. It may be a plan that would be a good fit for you. Now, remember I talked earlier about those of you that are VA or TRICARE for Life or FEHB, federal employees, retired from the federal government. What you can do if you get an MA-only plan, we find that these Part B reductions are greater. Sometimes they're going to give you back $100 a month or maybe even a little bit more. But if I'm going to get my prescription drugs through VA, TRICARE, or FEHB, then that MA plan is able to give us a little extra money towards your Part B reduction. So again, it's a very good benefit, and you get all these other perks that go along with it. Okay, so that's a feature that you're going to see within the Advantage system, and again, you may want to take advantage of that. All right, that takes us then to the final feature on Advantage plans, and that would be permanency. In other words, there are some times when people get on an Advantage plan and they're going to have to stay on the Advantage plan for the rest of their life. And again, you're going to have to be comfortable with this particular feature. And here's what I mean by that. Here's what happens, folks, as we make this comparison. When we go on Medicare, we basically have two choices. We can get a Med Sup plan, or we can get a Medicare Advantage plan. All right. So what happens in these two systems is when I first go on Medicare, I'm given a 6-month window where I can get any Medicare supplemental plan that I want. In other words, I enroll into Medicare A and B, and if I want a supplemental plan, there's no underwriting. Every company has to take me. We call this our medigap open enrollment period. It lasts 6 months. So if I get any supplemental plan that's available in my state, I can choose no underwriting required. But after 6 months, if I ever want to change Medicare supplemental plans or companies, in most states, I'm going to have to make medically qualified to make that move, which means we have to ask you 25 or 30 health questions. We're going to check all your medications you've taken for the last 24 months, get a statement from your doctor. So there's this underwriting process that we have to go through to make a switch from MedSup to another Medicare supplemental plan or company, and we're going to have to medically qualify after 6 months of having been on Medicare. Okay, now, if I go to a Medicare Advantage plan, there's no underwriting at all. In other words, that company has no right to say no to me like they would on a supplemental plan. So I can always get an Advantage plan. I can switch Advantage plans twice a year. I can switch them October 15th through December 7th, or I can switch them January 1 to March 31st. Okay? So I have these periods of time I can switch those plans, and again, there's no underwriting. But here's where it changes. If I'm on an Advantage plan, now let's say I've been on that Advantage plan, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. If I ever want to get off the Advantage and I'd like to go over here to the supplemental plan now, I'm going to have to go through underwriting to make that switch. And that's what I'm saying. If you decide to get an Advantage plan, we've got to be comfortable with the fact that that could be a permanent plan, meaning if I want to switch over to supplemental plan now, I'm going to have to medically qualify. And again, if you're comfortable with that, then that's no problem whatsoever. So those are the 10 features that are a part of every single Advantage plan. So now I told you that I would share with you the 3 items that would keep me personally from being on a Advantage plan. Now, by the way, I'm almost 62. I'm not yet ready for Medicare. But if I were making that decision today, there's 3 aspects here that I am very concerned about. Okay, I'm going to mention those to you. Number 1, I am concerned about networks, network providers. Okay, remember we talked about that? Because not every provider is going to take an Advantage plan. Some take HMO, some takes PPO. They'll take one or the other or both, and some take none of these. It's totally voluntary. And so that just means with networks, that means I'm going to have some restrictions and some limitations, and those things are very fluid. They can change on an annual basis. If I get a supplemental plan, I have no networks at all. I can go anywhere that takes Medicare. That's the only criteria, and that's almost everyone. Not everyone's going to take an Advantage plan. So that would be an issue for me that I'd be very uncomfortable with. Number 2, I'm also concerned about pre-authorizations. right? I have no idea what the future of my health needs will be, but what I do know that if I take an Advantage plan, the insurance company does have the final say-so. And many times they're going to cover that knee or hip replacement and different services that you need, but sometimes they don't. And so if I went with the supplemental plan, there are no pre-authorizations at all. If Medicare says that they'll cover it and the doctor says I need it, end of story, insurance company has no say-so whatsoever. So again, I prefer a supplemental plan with that because I have no pre-authorizations. So that's something that is very concerning to me. And then lastly, this thing I just talked about, and that is the permanency of the Advantage plan. Okay, remember, if I'm on an Advantage plan anytime more than a year or longer, what happens if I want to get off of it and switch to a supplemental plan? Now I have to medically qualify. A lot of times people want to make that switch when they're having health problems. It's too late. So you've got to do all that in advance because to get the supplemental company to approve me, now I've got to be fairly healthy. Now I don't have to be ready to run a marathon, but I can assure you, if you're a diabetic, especially one that has complications, you're not going to get approved. Spinal stenosis, rheumatoid arthritis, certain medications that people take today, the companies won't approve you because of the medications. So there's health conditions and pre-existing conditions. Now they're going to look at me and the insurance company may say, no, we're not going to approve that policy. So now I am on that Advantage plan for the rest of my life because I just can't get off of that. Again, that is concerning to me. Now you got to make your decision what's going to be best for you, either a supplemental plan or an Advantage plan. An Advantage plan may be a wonderful fit for you, but you got to be comfortable with these 10 features. And if you are, we'd be delighted to help you find the very best Advantage plan that'll fit your needs.